to navigate a toxic work environment. So Chey is here to give you a perspective from HR. And I know we all have our feelings about HR, but she's one of the good ones, you guys. So we want to make sure we show her some love because she can give you some insight. And we wanted to discuss today, you know how it's like the middle of the year and you have your mid-year review. Well, we want you to review your job right now. Let us know what is on your mind in terms of what it is you're liking at your job, what it is that you're not liking at your job. And we are here to answer any questions and have a dialogue about it. So if you guys got some questions, don't be shy. Don't be shy. And I won't put your name out there if you don't want me to either. So you guys can fire away. Chey, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think, yeah, it's right now is to your point, performance season. Usually performance reviews are semi-annual. So usually it's 2, sometimes it's 1 year, but either way, it's always good to prepare for them. And oftentimes, if you have an incredible manager, you'll know where you stand way before your performance review. You'll go into that performance review and be like, okay, everything that I already know is going to be documented on that paper. Mm-hmm. If you do not have a great manager, though, that's where you're going to be kind of scared, kind of nervous. Like, if you feel nervous, you should be nervous, right?
Right.
Because you should know before the performance review how you're doing, right? Because that should be a conversation you're having every single week or every single month with your manager. And so for performance reviews, I think it's a great way to highlight your performance, but it's also a great way to keep yourself covered. So I think if you want to, Kristen, you could definitely talk more in the sense of like, I think you have a great story when it comes to your performance review.
Oh my God, yes.
So, yeah, like,
and it's just like, and it's just like
it.
what you said. It's just like what you said, right? But I think the frustration with a lot of the people here is that they are, they're killing it at work, right? They are just like, they're going in and they're the top performers. They're the ones that are going in there. They're the ones that's carrying the load. They're the ones that's making these companies look good. But then they're the ones that's, penalized because somebody doesn't like them in upper management. And it's not fair to them. So you're right, though, because deep down inside, these people who are targets, they know. They already know. Like you said, you have that gut feeling and you know that, we're going to go in this room and it might not be so good. And in my experience, it was always, let's go. We have to go to HR. And I'm looking like, but why? Why is it that I have to go to HR all the time? I'm looking at all my other coworkers and they're like, oh yeah, we had our performance review, blah, blah, blah. Everything went well. And they're back to work and enjoying their lives. And then it's just like, no, but you go to the principal's office. So it was always me having to go somewhere in a room with human resources. It was always this tension, always this serious tone. I felt like I was always in the principal's office and it all boiled down to one person didn't like me, and then she, spread the word. Like, it's like an infection, you guys. I've said that before. It's like an infection. It spreads, it spreads, it spreads. And then now everyone's tainted, and there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do to change stuff. So,
Yep. And I love that analogy that you used when it comes to the principal office. HR is the principal office, and basically, it should be utilized as such. When people are saying HR, I hate HR, they're useless, they're the enemy. There are teams that are the enemy, to your point. Mm-hmm. But HR is not useless if you use them strategically. They're not your friend.
Right.
You can use them strategically like you would the principal's office, right? If you get to that point, then you need to pull out the big guns. You need to have your parents. You need to have your documents in an order. And hopefully, if this person is fair, they will talk you through either the yes, you're right, or the no, here's why. And then you can make your decision based on that, right? And so,
exactly.
Yeah, like in that way, yes, I totally agree with you. HR is the principal's office. I never thought about it that way.
but here's, what you said, though? You said HR is not your friend, but nobody at work is your friend. No. And I think that's the point that everyone needs to realize because there's been a few people that have reached out to me and told me, okay, either the people that they thought were their friends were the ones snitching on them, trying to get them in trouble, or, you're confiding too much in your friend. I think a young lady told me the other day that she had confided her coworkers about her insecurities, and now they're using it against her. And I'm like, these are your coworkers. They are not your friends. And so you have to treat just like human resources, nobody is your friend. You are going to work. Yes, you can be friendly, right? But when you start opening your world up to people, that leaves you vulnerable for them to use against you what they know. Now, I have a comment down here from Leah. She says, not everyone has the privilege of POCHR. Do you know
People
what
of color.
POC is?
People of
Oh,
color
oh
HR.
my goodness.
So
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I should know that, you guys.
So
Not
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
has the privilege of POCHR. She's right. She's absolutely right. And what are they doing? Are they doing anything in the HR space at all, Chey, to address that we
I
don't
would
have enough
say
women of color or people of color in HR?
from my experience, I find that there's the most people of color or women of color, minorities in HR. To be honest, from my experience, that's the point of entry. That one and customer service. And so, yes, I agree with you. Not dealing with a person of color, and even so much as sometimes dealing with a woman that is not a person of color can be even more toxic than dealing with a man that's not a person
Right.
of color. And so, but still, you should always treat HR as not your friend. They have two goals, and the main goal is to protect the business. The
Yep.
second goal is to protect the employee. So if the first goal is to protect the business, then you need to align it where they cannot refuse. And that's why I say you use them strategically. If you have all your ducks in a row, you know your compliance law, always having a paper trail, you can go to them. They're incompetent, you go to the step up.
Right.
They're incompetent, you go to the Department of Labor. You go to etc., Better Business Bureau. You need to utilize them as a tool. And sometimes you'll have someone that's great at mentoring and they do believe in human resources. Because,
Did you see what she said?
yes,
Well,
why call it human
she's right.
resources
She's right,
then?
though. It should be called company resources.
But let me break it down very technical. Human resources. Humans are a resource of the company. And so, therefore, the human resource team oversees their biggest asset, which is people. And therefore, the human resource team takes the strategic initiative from the CEO or the board members, right? And board members, just for your information, are people that have put a shit ton of money into this company, excuse my French, but put a ton of money into this company. And because there's so much people that have a vested interest and they own more of the company more often than not than the CEO or founder, they're not even connected to the human resource, the human population. They're just like, I gave you money, your numbers don't match, fix it. And when you have such a disconnection at the top like that, is where you have the disconnection with culture at the bottom. And
Yeah.
so, when you have those situations, and again, human resources is the biggest asset of the company, and I say asset. So once you become a liability, they let you go. And that's where I'm saying, if you feel like the company is starting to treat you like a liability, then give them one hell of a ride, to be honest.
And,
So,
and you know what? I tell them all the time. And I want to talk about this with you for a moment because I always tell them, number one, check your employee handbook to understand the rules so that you can take them for a ride, right? If you know the rules, you know how to use the rules to your advantage. So first of all, you use the rules. And then if you're deciding if it's to the point where you are a liability and you do have a target on your back, then you need to be using up your benefits before you leave out the door, right? You want to do it in a strategic way. You can't be out there like, oh, and you can't be telling people what you're going to do. You do not tell your coworkers, if someone's messing with you at work, they see it. Go home and talk to your friends and your family about it. But don't share too much. We always move in silence. know the handbook inside and out, take paid leave, because nothing breaks my heart more than when I have people constantly telling me I'm on FMLA, I took FMLA, how can they put me on a PIP on my FMLA? And I just keep hearing FMLA, FMLA all the time. I'm like, why are you off for free when you have possibly short-term and long-term disability benefits that's going to pay you, while you're off? As long as your doctor has, okayed you to be off, then you use benefits to your advantage. And that's what me and Chey are talking about. You don't quit. They want you to quit because then they don't have to give you benefits. And then when you try to go apply for unemployment, and I know some people had told me, I'm not sure if it's New York or not, but a young lady told me that she said in New York, if you quit, you can still get unemployment. I'm not 100% clear on the state, but what's your take on the unemployment thing?
So it's rare. And New York, thankfully, has this great sort of clause in the unemployment where there's basically it's almost like a clause where if a company bullies you into
Mm-hmm.
quitting, they may still be required to pay you unemployment. And I say bullying meaning that they are slowly taking away work, they're slowly knocking down your hours. It's very provable with actually hourly workers.
Okay.
So they're knocking down your hours slowly to kind of like force you out of the company so that you'll quit and then they don't have to pay unemployment. If you can
Exactly.
successfully prove it, then you'll get unemployment. But again, you don't want to go that route. You want to get them to fire you. And to your point, if you start feeling, and I feel like everyone has that sort of intuition, especially if
Absolutely.
you're a person of color, especially when you are not welcome. Okay? Once
Yes.
you get that inkling, and
Listen
if
to
you
it.
don't have, listen to it, and this is a shameless plug, but it's true, get yourself a therapist. And I say get yourself a therapist because it's the best investment you can do at that time. Because by the time you're getting to the really toxic point, your therapist and you have already built up a rapport where they'll be like, no problem. I'll fill out that STD, short-term disability
Yep.
paperwork for you because
Not the
I
not the other
understand you.
SPD. Not the other
Yeah.
SPD. Right.
So exactly. And so in that way, you already lined your ducks up. It's almost like a paper trail without paper trailing it. You're being strategic about your exit. So you can have that paid time off. And then you get the severance agreement because they're worried about you potentially whistleblowing on the company because you have all that paperwork, right? And
Yep.
then you get the continuation of benefits. Some companies don't do it, but they might pay you out in a lump sum. And then you get the unemployment, which is so crucial, especially during this time of all the layoffs and the recession.
Yep.
So,
So you guys, please don't quit your job. I tell you all the time. I understand. I have been there. I mean, and that's what I can tell you. I can sympathize with you. I understand, but they want you to quit. They're like, please quit. That's why they're doing what they're doing, so that you can quit, so that you can get all discombobulated and don't take your benefits. And like Chey said, in more ways than one, yes, your doctor can definitely be there for you to take you off when needed. But you definitely want to get you a therapist the second they start mistreating you, because I'm gonna tell you something. A lot of the mistreatment, it starts off very, very subtle.
yeah.
And then the next thing you know, your whole mind has been reconditioned, and now you got low self-esteem and everything else. I can tell you, I was pretty much like how I am now. But if you go back to some of my older videos on my YouTube channel, you will see, because I was going through my healing process, and my therapist was like, share your story. Let other people know what you've gone through, and in that way they can, you can help others while you're healing. And you can see I was a hot darn mess. And so, but it took time for me to get there. And by the time I got a therapist, my mind was already I was already a changed person in terms of, how the toxic environment changed who I was. So when you start seeing the handwriting on the wall, it is not, there's nothing wrong with getting a therapist. Because I'll tell you, I just had a coaching session with a young lady this week. And she told me that she went to go see a therapist, and that day asked the therapist, could they take her off work? I'm like, you can't. You can't do that. And I'll tell you every time, because I'm trying to build up, a huge network where you guys can come to bossoculture.org and go to the resources page and find a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and an employment lawyer in your state. So you guys, I'm working on that. And if you are a lawyer, an employment lawyer, or a psychiatrist or psychologist, and you happen to come across this video, or if you guys know a friend that wants to get involved in this organization so that they can be one of the resources that I can personally vet, that is what I want to offer you guys. But I'm telling you guys, with the therapists that I have met with, they told me I can take people off of work, but they are not going to sit down with me on day one and ask me to take them off. That is like, if you want to irritate a doctor or therapist, you're going to go to them and ask them to take you off work. That's not fair to them. And then what you guys need to realize is if it ever gets to a point where you have to go, say you have to go the legal route, that doctor may have to go to bat for you, and that doctor may be subpoenaed. And if they only got one session with you, then how are they looking? You know what I'm saying? So you're putting that doctor in a very vulnerable position by asking them to take you off of work after one session. They need time to build that up. And that's why, your medical record is a form of documentation, but beyond the documentation, it's also for your mental health. So I don't know if you had anything more you wanted to add to that, Chey.
Yeah, no, that you hit it right on the head. Like, a stranger is not going to go to bat for you. And so treat therapists like the people that they are. They're just
Exactly.
licensed. And so, again, you need to build the rapport. You need to build a relationship with this person for them to be like, yes, you are in distress. I do believe you. You're not a scammer. And I will
Mm-hmm.
send in the documents because they will, right? And you don't need a psychiatrist or a psychologist that puts you on a ton of medication. You don't need that route, unless obviously, of course, you need it. But
Right.
there's a stigma that you have to go all the way in the like opposite direction. You need to be on like Adderall and antidepressants and all this in order for you to get that. You don't. And I think that's a very powerful thing to utilize that
Mm-hmm.
especially in black and brown communities are not utilized because of that stigma.
Yep.
And they're the communities that need it the most in these corporate environments. You know what's so funny? I wanted to tell you something that came around full circle very recently. HR also deals with very toxic environments, and it's actually even worse in a lot of ways because there's no one for us to report to. And so
Wow.
the unfortunate truth is that my first HR job was extremely toxic to the point that I had to get therapy after I left that job because I could not trust the corporate space. And one of the HR leaders at that place who was black, and again, that's why I say it doesn't necessarily, like a POC doesn't necessarily mean they're your friend.
Tell me about that.
And
Sometimes they are the worst ones because they're trying to prove a point.
right, and they are something that I actually heard this term recently, an anti-mentor, right? We're always looking for mentors, but there's also people that are the anti-mentor that like are actively trying to tear you down, right?
Wow.
And so she, I thought, was a mentor, right? And our last meeting ended very abruptly because I was speaking about a situation that was happening in another job where I needed guidance, and she didn't want to hear it. She was just like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want a mentorship. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago. She just came around full circle, apologizing, saying, I am so sorry for what I did to you. And I am so sorry for how I communicated to you. And I am so sorry for how I left you out to dry in that first job. And it's
I wonder what
crazy.
made her have that come to Jesus moment. What made her have that full circle?
I'm wondering too. I actually reached back out to try and get a call for us to chat just because I was just like, she's been in HR for 15, 20 years. I'm talking about someone you really look up to, especially dealing with these spaces and being a black woman, dark-skinned black woman. I know it was hard. And so I was
Right.
just like, I would love to hear from her how she came to Jesus in that moment, for her to realize what happened in the past, and also in the same vein, people do understand when they did something wrong. they might, especially HR, they might not know in that exact moment per se.
Right.
But you're supposed to be working within the confines of morality and ethics, right? And same thing with lawyers. And so, like, even for just coming back around again, yes, human resources is an asset, but also a lot of people are well intentioned. And again, we're not your friends, but you could
Right.
definitely use us to help you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was it's so, and when you talk about full circle, it warms my heart that I have HR, I have managers reaching out to me, wanting to know how they can make the workplace better. I have HR managers reaching out to me, wanting to know how they can make the workplace better. And one of them, she was just in so much distress. And I think I did do a video about that one. And she was telling me that she has several employees coming to her, and they were like freaking out because they were either being discriminated against, harassed, all the things. And so she actually cared. And so she's like, what can I do? How can I help these employees? Because they're coming to me. And so she said she went to the CEO and upper management, and they could care less. They could care less. And so they started bullying her as a result. So she and I set something up, and I gave her some advice, and she just emailed me actually last night, and she told me they came full circle. And she told me, thank you so much for your advice. And they're seeing it my way, and things are getting much better now. So I really do believe that sometimes people do have a conscience and they think about it. But, when you start, but keep an eye on it when you see things, because just because something may go away does not mean that it's always gone. Because I have experienced every which way of the bullying, and it ceases for a moment, and then and I know that the motivation a lot of times, you guys, is the statutes of limitations.
Yep.
When they know they've done something so horrible, and they know that you can go get you a lawyer and it's a lawsuit all day every day, then that's when they all of a sudden, okay, I'll leave her alone and let's let this clock run out, and then when we can again, we're back at it. So yep, Lorena said it creeps back. Now, I also see where Leah said that her therapist documented the mistreatment for her. And that is so important. When you are meeting with your therapist, if you're going in there and you're talking about how your brother, when you were 16, I mean, if that really happened, then, definitely talk to your therapist about that. But I know for me, my psychiatrist and my psychologist, because that's how bad it got, and the medication, because that's how bad it got, popping a pill to go to work just to deal with it. It was all about work. And if you can prove that your job made you sick, did you guys know that you can collect workers' comp? Did you know that? As a white collar employee, it's meant the mental illness, if it was caused by your job because you were injured on the job, if you get the right workers' comp attorney, then you can file workers' comp. So keep that in mind, you guys. And I share a lot of these tips with you. I just published a book. It's an ebook form right now. Right now it's called, thank you. And I worked really, really hard on this book because I wanted to, just like this whole community, like it warms my heart when I look in the comments and everybody's like helping everybody. That was what my dream was, right? And so just for us to come together, help each other, you may have some advice. I might not be able to get back to your comment. Chey might not be able to get back to your comment. And Chey, while I'm at it right now, share your handle so that people can find you too.
Yes. So my handle is the People Press. So THEPPL Press. So PRESS. If you check my channel, it's been a little quiet, and the reason why is because I'm working on the operations side on the back end. So I really want to make sure that you guys are supported. And I'm just trying to build out the website, how to contact me, how to reach me, and just make sure I'm better supporting you guys, and also building, resources for you guys, because I think a lot of the times folks don't know what to do. They go to HR, they expect to have the right information from HR, from your handbook, from the company policies. And I swear I've seen it myself, even at my current job. They will post things that are actually illegal in the handbooks that are actually pervasive. I think that's the correct term. When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to like they'll make it purposely confusing so you don't know what's happening. And again, HR could have the best intentions for you and their hands are tied. And so again, it's best
That's the
for
other
you.
thing, right?
Yeah.
It's so many layers to this, right?
Yeah.
So when we start talking about the layers to this, right? And I think you mentioned this earlier. So you got people of color, women of color, right? Then
Yep.
you've got the darker cocoa, beautiful cocoa shades to the
Mm-hmm.
butter pecan shades. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody has their level of what they experience.
Yep.
And a lot of us, there's a common thing, our faces look scary, we're intimidating, all the names, all the things, right? And so we deal with that, I have a strong personality. But by the time they were done with me, I was a mouse for a minute. So, and that's what I'm telling you guys, just don't get to that point. You don't want to get to that point where you are just becoming something that you're not anymore. Because I was an unrecognizable soul and we don't want to lose ourselves in these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's just so many layers because like you said, human resources, you don't know what they're dealing with. Just like the human resources manager that reached out to me, she didn't know what she was freaking out. She said, I don't know what to do. And she said, I don't want to leave these people. She said, they are hurting and how do I help them?
Yep.
So just like you, there are good ones out there, but like you said, it's you got to know how to strategically use people. And I don't want to say the word like use people, but you
Yeah.
have to learn how to strategically, help me with the word, like, use them as a resource.
Even let's take that out. Strategic, because I'm getting tired of that word too. Everyone's using strategic. Um, Put yourself in that person's shoes. Like take an hour, shut off everything. Think what would be the day in the life of an HR leader, right? What would
Hmm.
they have to deal with? What is their problems? Who are they dealing with? Who are they reporting to? And then after you go through all of that, all right, so how can I get what I need from a person with those constraints? And then you
Right.
build it.
Wow. So you just reverse engineered the whole thing.
Right.
And
And
that's how, yep.
no, but that's how I feel like, screw strategic. Let me throw that out the window because they use that all the time. And honestly, that's also has to do with code switching, right? They're using that in these companies that are predominantly white, and they always say you need to be strategic. What the hell is strategic, right? And so, okay, I'm breaking it down for you. Like, take a second, look back, and if you really can't do it, shoot, go to Chat GPT.
Oh my God.
What
Isn't
is
that the
HR
best now?
constraints? Amazing AI.
I am scared of that thing, but at the same time, it's just like, oh my God, I'm so amazed at it because I've played around with it a little bit and I'm just like, whoa, it is super powerful, but it's like everything else, it has to me, I see it I can see where it could take over some things, which is kind of scary. And if you look at the way a lot of these employers are going, if AI, if they can talk to you and they can, mimic you and what are they going to need with employees anymore? And so that's what leads me to the next thing, right? I have a video. You guys have a sneak peek of what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to release. And I talked about, having a second gig. And there was a comment that I received that was super hilarious. And the young lady had told me that her job has basically been getting on her nerves. And she said, if they keep doing this, I'm about to make my part-time job. So she got a full-time job. She's about to make that part-time her full-time. So I always tell people to have a backup plan. And I know it's hard, it's easier said than done. But I always had hustle in my heart, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So even though I was going to work and being bashed, something told me 18 years ago, go get your real estate license. And that was the best thing I could have ever did because who would have known that when I was forced to retire, that I went straight into that full time. And I never really skipped a beat other than the healing part. But I didn't skip a beat in terms of, going back to the drawing board, trying to figure out what I was going to do because now I'm doing what I actually want to do, what I actually love to do with my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I know that some people try to try to tiptoe out like at lunchtime. I know there was a guy who was a realtor where I worked at, and he was showing houses, but he was doing it during, he was going at lunch, but then he was staying like extra, and then they found out about it, and then, he was let go. Well, I'm not telling you guys to do no stuff like that, but
Yeah.
you got to do it within reason. And I think, though, from a human resources perspective, they asked the question if you have like if I recall, they did ask questions like, do you have businesses outside of this or something like other interests or whatever? Is that an issue?
It is. And
Okay.
it is and it isn't. Okay, so let me tell you how to beat the system.
Okay.
What they call it is moonlighting, right? And it's so funny to me because if you work at McDonald's, you could definitely work at Wendy's, and then also you could Uber Eats and no one bats an eye. But when
Right.
you work in corporate, they oftentimes have moonlighting policies. They ask you if you have other businesses. And the reason why is that it has to deal with intellectual property. They don't want you releasing their intellectual property. They don't
Hmm.
want you claiming their intellectual property. So what you can do is that you just very specifically dig into the details of what exactly they're asking. And also you need to know your industry. So for example, if you are a engineer that works in e-commerce or in technology, yeah, you kind of have to report it because unfortunately you're in so much intellectual property. Your whole job is intellectual property
Hmm.
that they're worried that you're building code for
Got
any other company that's intellectual property, right? And so if you're reporting that you say you take side projects, but it's in a totally different industry, you're fine, right?
Okay.
And similarly, but if you're in a totally different team that has nothing to do with intellectual property, you
Hmm.
technically don't need to report it. The only time you actually need to report it is if you're in one of those sensitive teams, right? So, for example, I work in finance technology. We have stockbrokers. Therefore, if you are a stockbroker of our company, you have to report to us if you're stockbroking for someone else. We got the exclusive rights for you.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and it's the same thing with lawyers. It's very similar with lawyers. Um, but like if I'm doing an HR project for another company and it's based on HR policies that are tried and true, right? Like
Hmm.
New York law and things like that. I don't need to report that. The only time I need to report that is if I do not want the company to try and claim my intellectual property.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So yeah,
And I see, and that's just the thing is, and that's why I always tell people too, it's always important to look at that employee handbook. And I
yeah,
think that when people, when they get hired, and I was guilty of this too. A lot of times, I know for me, I was giddy. I was 18 when I had started in my career, and so the last thing I was thinking about doing was like, let me sit down and study this employee handbook. You're not doing that, right? But when things start changing for you and you start noticing differences that, in terms of how you're treating and how you're being treated as opposed to your coworkers, then that's when you need to start pulling that book out. And you're like, okay, because I'll tell you, in my handbook, like you said, there was things that was in there, and I'm looking like, okay, but you guys are saying that this is illegal and we shouldn't be doing this, but you doing this. You know what I'm saying?
that part,
And
that
that was
part.
exactly, and that was the thing that I was doing. I would print up, I would highlight it, I would email, I would email myself. And then of course, you guys, I had shared with you with the emails because that is their email. I guess that whole server situation, and I didn't know this, and and I'll tell you too. When I almost got fired for sending emails home to my home email address. This was years. This was like maybe 7, 8 years ago. So the stuff that you guys got going now, because I know that one video I did, everyone was like, "Oh, just take the picture with your phone." Uh, it was all kinds of things, Shy. They were telling me to do. They were just like, "Do this, do that." And I was just like, "Wow, they are crafty." Somebody said they had a backup drive, all kinds of things. But it's okay for the most part to print these emails up, right?
It
Okay.
is.
Okay.
I would say it's okay to print the emails. It's okay to take a photo of the emails. It's okay to record if you're in a one person consent state.
Yes.
Um, it is not okay to use a drive. I do not suggest using a drive. You use a drive, you're going to get fired.
How do they
And
know?
so,
How do they know? How do they know if you use a drive?
so technology, unless you work at one of those real old companies, they have it on the back end that they can pick up that you plugged in an external drive into the computer. It's the most basic security risk that there is out there. It is like the
Wow.
low, if there's levels like low level, medium level, high level, extreme, that's in the low level bracket. Like that's petty crime right there. And it's very easily provable and it's very easily fireable. Do not use an external drive to plug into your work computer to
Did y'all
download
hear that?
things.
Did y'all
Yeah,
hear that?
don't do that.
Because
So,
a couple people said that they were like, "Oh, I just have my thumb drive, and you should have used your thumb drive." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they were wild in the comments telling me I had me cracking up." And so you said snapping a picture is fine, and the other ways of documenting, like you said as well, is again, you guys check in your state to see if it is legal for you to record conversations that you are a part of. Now, if you hearing me and Shy talk and we're having a conversation and you're thinking somebody's bullying you, if Shy is bullying you, because I'm not gonna be the one bullying you, but if Shy was the one bullying you, and you record me and her talking, that's eavesdropping, so that's illegal. But
yeah.
if like we're talking, she and I are talking right now, and I record and I let her, I go ahead and record the conversation, then you need to check in your state to see if that's legal for you to do. Because I think in some states you have to let people know if you're recording them, right?
You do.
Right.
Um, More states than not allow for one consent, or they'll have like an exception.
Okay.
But there are some states that require consent of all parties. And that's
Gotcha.
where you can't do that. So that's where I say the best possible route is to print or to screen, take a picture with your phone. That's great. That's amazing. That's even better than printing because sometimes people don't have printers like that anymore, right?
Yep,
And with,
exactly.
yeah, with hybrid work, remote work, if you don't have it, it shouldn't stop you from taking a picture.
Now I have a question for you now that when you brought up hybrid. I had a gentleman in my comments on my YouTube channel share with me a channel that he started because he was being harassed by his human resources manager. And so at the time, he was working hybrid. And I know that Zoom lets you know that they're recording. He
Yes.
recorded conversations. I guess they were trying to fire him. And so it was human resources. And I think that was his manager sitting in there. He got videos that he created a YouTube channel and labeled it something to the point HR reps, or he had her name harassing me, and he released the video. So he sent me the link for me to, and I was just like, oh my God. So um, I told him I was not going to, because he was like, you should tell people to do this. I told him I wasn't going to advise anybody to do that because what he told me, he said, well, when you go on Zoom, they let you know that the conversation is being recorded. But I don't, isn't it like kind of, aren't you kind of doing something in don't do that land when you start recording and putting stuff out there?
I mean, he's a brave soul. I hope he did not sign a servant's agreement because then he will get sued. But he is within his right to post that. Um, I
Really?
think, yeah, he is within his right. If it's a one consent state, right? He can post whatever he wants. He gave consent. And
Because I
so,
know, because Zoom does tell you normally if it's a recorded, you know,
yes, it does.
video, you're being recorded. So it does announce, hey, you're being recorded. But I thought that was, I mean, he had me speechless. I was just like, whoa. It was like, I think it was like 4 videos on there. And he said that she had a LinkedIn and all of a sudden she took it off and she disappeared off the face of the earth. But, I mean, people get tired of being bullied. They get to the point where they're like, you know what, this person has, it pushes you to do things that you normally wouldn't do. But I always tell people like, hey, look, you can go, I'm not gonna say you can go low. You can still stay high, but get them at the same time. And see, a person like me, I'm patient. I can wait it out. I can I can sit in the trenches and the whole time I have printed the emails and I'm like, oh, okay. And if I have a meeting with you, it's something that we discuss because like you said, if you live in a state where you can't record conversations, the consent states, if you can't record, then it's always wise to send an email after the meeting saying, okay, based on the meeting, thank you so much for your time. You always thank them, always keep it professional, and you just recap what you discussed. Because that way, that is a record, that is a way for you to document what was discussed if you can't get that on recording. So that's also a way for you to document.
I also think that he actually, upon thinking further through this, he did an incredible job. He did an incredible job, actually, because what he did by doing that is that he got consent from all parties,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it notified everyone, right? Unless their IT administrator or their IT team, InfoSec team, turned off that notification to be sneaky when they're recording, right? But either way, if it's one consent, amazing. If it's everyone consented because of that notification, amazing, right?
Right.
And then him posting, I'm guessing he was not getting the results that he desired. So posting gets visibility where you start, it's almost like an activist move, right? It's for the folks that they know it's illegal, but no one's listening. So instead of going to court, they go to, NBC, they go
Yeah.
to the press, right? He did the
The,
same thing.
the court of opinion is so, because if you get that court of opinion, honey, and then people are looking at the company and now the company's looking bad, right? So that damages the reputation. Because a lot of times, I think employees, it's not even about the money if you're trying to sue. It's about, hey, look, you did this to me. You tried to embarrass me. You made me feel this way. And so I'm going to stick it to you. I want you to see how it feels in a sense, right? So, yeah, I was, like I said, I was in shock, and I found myself watching the videos. I was like, Chris, stop doing this. Stop. I was like, stop watching these videos. I'm like, this might be wrong. I don't know what I'm doing here.
I mean, honestly, I honestly love it. Some of the videos can be a bit ridiculous, but I do love how social media has brought awareness to how
Big time.
companies or even people, like in the case of this HR manager, can take advantage of the power that they have and can abuse employees, right? And so, I've seen multiple videos, or they'll make its way into, let's say, the circles that I'm in at work. And they'd be like, did you see that video of this employee? I'm like, I hope you guys remember that could be you.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other funny thing about human resources, is that the human resources manager I had right before I left, she didn't realize I knew because I used to work with her husband because her husband worked at the same company, but she didn't know that I knew that we lived in the same neighborhood. And so while I was out on leave, I happened to be I went to the grocery store and she was in the bread aisle getting the bread. And so I'm pushing my buggy up and she was talking, I guess, to one of her kids. And she looked over at me and you would have thought she saw a ghost. Now, in the conference room, oh, she was the biggest, baddest BIT that you would ever meet. You would have thought she saw a ghost. That woman grabbed her buggy and ran up the aisle like I was going to do something to her. And I just gave her a look. I let her know what I was thinking and how I was feeling by looking at her. I had that ability to let you know, like, yeah, you. And but she ran, and it was hilarious because I'm like, these people hide behind these desks, they hide behind those walls, and at the end of the day, they are punks.
They
The ones,
know.
the bad ones.
But that's where I say, these fields like HR, like legal, like compliance, they know maybe even earlier than other teams when you're doing wrong, when you are capitalizing on your power. And so
Mm-hmm.
in her instance, she was the big bad at work, and she
Mm-hmm.
saw you and ran because she thought she was going to get her ass beat
Mm-hmm.
because she did wrong. Like,
Oh,
so.
and trust me, I wanted to, but I got class, and at the same time, where we live, the police will be there with the quickness, and I'm like, I just,
But you got
the
yours
look,
in the end.
the look gave her running from me gave me all the satisfaction in the world.
Hmm.
So it's just, to me, that was, I always find a way to get karma, and sometimes I don't see it all the time, But my karma, the people that have harmed me or tried to harm me during the whole workplace bullying experience, I have heard, okay, yeah, they got walked out. Oh, yeah, they were forced to quit. Oh, yeah, they were. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm hearing all these things. So I want you guys to know that um, just because you're going through this right now, it's a thing. I don't know if y'all believe this or not, but this is what I believe. There is karma is real.
Yeah.
And if you do bad, the bad got to come back to see you one day. And if you're out there doing good, then nothing but goodness is going to come your way. So I find it that, you might be going through a tough time right now, but just know that that person is going to get it. They're going to get it some kind of way. You may or may not hear about it, but they're going to get it, and they can't get away with it forever.
Yeah.
I'd say I want to say like 98% of the people that were a part of my career's demise are no longer there anymore.
That's amazing.
It's
I
just
love
one more.
that.
It's just one more person they need to go get though, and she was the one who started it all. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But
but
even then, their life, to your point, karma.
yeah,
When I think of people that do such like horrible things, they're doing the bullying, they're doing all these things, their life, because that doesn't translate where it's just at work, right? Like
yeah,
that also bleeds into at home. And if you're like that, you're not having a fulfilling life. You're just not. You're
you're
just not.
not. You're
Yeah.
not. You're people that come to work to pick with other people are miserable. That's the reason why they do what they do,
Yep.
because they're hurting. And as cliche as this may sound, hurt people, right? And so they're out there hurting you because their wife or their husband does not want to be with them. They are totally unhappy with their home life. And they see you, and then you look like you've got it all together, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't stand this person. This person is too happy. So what can I do to bring this person down? Oh my God, they like her or they like him. Well, and they don't like me, but so I'm going to make other people not like this person."
Yeah. Or they think like, oh, you remind me of this person that I hate, and I'm gonna
Oh
treat
my
you
gosh,
badly.
yes. Isn't that funny? I remember it was so funny. There was a lady who could not stand me, and my mother had made the comment. She said, I think you remind her of somebody that she doesn't like. Because I'm like, people they don't even have to know you. They just automatically form this opinion of you, and then they just run with it.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad. And I think that the other thing is that, when you have these larger organizations, and then you have people that, try to go to another department. And that's why I usually tell people, okay, well, if it's really really bad in that department, check out the other department. You may have luck. But if the culture is bad at the company, the culture is just bad, because usually there's a manager who knows another manager who's going to talk about you bad, and then it's just going to follow you. So sometimes it's just best to have a fresh start.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to find somewhere else than to stay where you're at. Truly.
And that's why, it's so important, like, when you, like right now, we're in the middle of the year, and you have to take time to reflect, and you just do it in every area of your life, where you just sit down and you reflect and say, okay, where am I right now? Am I happy? Take inventory of it. And you may have to take a pay cut. Um, of course, do it within reason. You don't want to be living, if your household is X amount of dollars, and then you got to go take another job. You don't want to put yourself in a situation that you can't live. But you have to take stock in, is this company feeding me, right? Or is this company sucking me dry? Is this friend feeding me? Or am I always giving, 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 and I'm not receiving, receiving, receiving?
Mhm.
And so I just think that, and I'll tell you this, and I don't know if do you consider yourself an empath?
So, I'm actually conflicted a little bit because I think, if you speak to folks at work, they
Mm-hmm.
would say I'm super empathetic. and they have like this whole rating scale. Like there's this like colors test or something, Briggs Meyer Briggs maybe,
Yeah.
and from that scale, I rate super blue. I'm super empathetic with a dash of orange, which is like loves fun, loves having fun, energetic, right? But then on
Hmm.
my friend's side, they would say that I'm super logical, still like having fun, but I'm super logical. And I think from my point of view, I am empathetic to the experience that people have, especially people of color, and coming from that background. And so in these very white spaces, they would say I'm empathetic. And I'm like, no, that's human rights.
Right, right,
And
right.
so, but in these spaces where I'm around my family and friends like that, they might say I'm logical. And the reason why I say that is that if they're coming to me and they're saying, oh, this is happening, I'm having a bad day, da, 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 I'm like, okay, do you want me to listen? Do you want me to help you problem solve?
Right.
Um, do you want me to basically back you up regardless of how wrong you may be, right? So do you
Hmm.
want me to be like, yeah, she's I hate her, all those things, like, like, oh, my job, your job does suck. Yeah, let's find you a new job. Um, and in that way they might say you're logical and that you can compartmentalize. But I
Okay.
think also in that same vein, I think being in corporate environments has made me a lot more structured in my idea of how to push things across, because I think unfortunately corporate environments are run by a lot of white men
Yes.
and they
Yes.
don't know an emotion from their elbow. Okay. So like it's like the same
Absolutely.
thing. So yeah.
There's no connection, right? Because they don't understand.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I'm I am an empath, so
Yeah.
I have the ability that if someone is hurting, I have the ability to feel what they're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Um, just a little tidbit about me, you guys. I watch ASMRs at night to go to bed. You can ask my husband. And I like the ones where like they're brushing your hair or they're putting your makeup on and or the Reiki ones. And they're really soothing, but when the hair brushing and the makeup one, I can feel the people doing that, right? So I've had the ability to feel what other people are going through. And I notice that oftentimes a lot of the people that reach out to me, a lot of the one-on-one coaching sessions I have, a lot of people tell me that they're empaths. And I noticed a common thread that typically people who are empathetic, more empathetic than others, they're the ones that are targeted. And I think it's because we care so much, right? We're givers, we're natural givers, and we're the ones that keep the company afloat. We're the superstars, and we're all about giving, giving, giving. And I'm guilty of doing that in my personal life too. I've had boundary issues in the past where I had to step back and be like, oh my God, I'm always giving, giving, giving. Like, and then, and then I'll get upset after I've been giving for like a year or two and then realize, and then just realize I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm being used. But I
Yeah.
enjoy giving at the same time. And now I have learned, through taking stock and sitting back and just kind of reflecting like, oh wow, okay, yeah, you probably, if you're the one always giving all the time, then you should probably, really rethink that relationship with that person, So, and that's the same thing with your job. Oftentimes, you give, but if your job is not giving back to you, and I'm not even talking about the benefits and the pay, I'm talking about if it's not fulfilling, then that's when you need to rethink. Okay, what the heck am I doing?
Absolutely. And even so much as like it doesn't need to be all that in a bag of chips. It should be,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it doesn't need to be all that in a bag of chips. But if you are going to the front of your job and you're literally like about to cry every day, it's time for you to go. Right? If you're
Exactly.
if you are looking forward to sleeping, or not even, you're not looking forward to sleeping because that means you have to wake up the next day to go to work, time for you to go.
Yep.
Okay?
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter. So to your point, it doesn't matter about the benefits. It doesn't matter about the pay increases. I've seen this with people that have gotten consistent pay increases.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. It's about how you feel in that role. And I promise you, there are roles where you can be there and you don't feel that dread before you go there, right? And you don't have to absolutely love it. I think sometimes that can be a fairy tale for a lot of people, especially if they have competing priorities in their personal life. But you shouldn't dread it. Like, you should not dread it. You should not be having an anxiety or panic attack right before you go to work. Okay?
You shouldn't be popping a pill like I was. I mean, literally, it was just like my doctor was like, "Okay, how long does it take you to get to work?" I'm like, 30 minutes. Okay, take one half before you leave the house, and the other half. If you living like that, then you know it's time to go. But
Right. Right.
I think, and I want to ask you this because oftentimes people, and I know we're kind of coming up on an hour, but I want to invite you guys as well to please ask your questions to me and Chey. Don't be shy. I see a lot of you guys doing it, and so just make sure if you have any questions for us, please let us know, and that way we can answer them for you. This is a dialogue with all of us, so y'all make sure that you just let us know what you're thinking about, what's on your mind, what do you want to know about. But I'll tell you, it's just you should not get to the point where, like you said, having nightmares, that type of thing. I was having nightmares, and no one should be drugged up to go to work. And if it starts to get that bad, I just think that, you have to really, really, really ask yourself, you got to soul search. And it's just, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I think, and I'll tell you, and I know a lot of people can relate to this, Chey, that they get that. Has any one of you guys ever experienced where you almost have like like you feel stuck, so you're so stuck and you're freaking out that you can't make a move,
Yeah.
because that is the worst, and I've been there.
That's a big one. And that, I think that also pays attention to self confidence. Usually a company will knock down or chip at your self confidence so much that you feel stuck, that you
Wow.
feel like no one else will take you. You feel
Yep.
like no one else you will never find a job again because you're so incompetent, you're so worthless. And that's not the case. Usually you can, so in some rare cases, and I say rare because I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to be like, damn, I need to get a job right now. I don't care what it is, right? And
Hmm.
therefore you might need to take a pay cut, right? Because you have priorities that are more important than waiting around for another job. But in that same vein, you can get the same exact job, less stress,
Yep.
and 20% more money. And I'm not lying. This is a statistic. You can Google this. Okay? This is something that you can do, even in this recession. As long as you tailor your resume appropriately, and I think a lot of people think a resume tailoring is a magical unicorn beast that needs keywords that are perfectly the match to the ATS. It's not like that, right?
Okay,
The
so you don't do that copy and paste and then make it white and put it at the bottom and
You don't have to do all of that. You don't. You do not have to do all of that. That is a cool tip, but you don't. All you need
okay.
to do is one, take out that damn summary out the top. Unless you're applying for a government job, like know your industry. But
Hmm.
most companies do not want that summary. Obviously, you're applying to that job for a reason, right?
Right.
So you don't need that. I also often see people tailoring their resume where the experience under each job is a paragraph. Do not do that. Put it in bullet points. And the reason why I say that is recruiters are usually understaffed and they have to look through your resume super fast to get you to the next
Oh,
round, right? And so,
okay.
and then when you're tailoring these bullet points, you're always tailoring those bullet points for one of three things. One, how did you cut costs for the company, right? The data.
Y'all listen up.
How did you bring in money for the company, right?
Important.
Or how did you increase efficiency for the company?
Okay,
And
you guys, how did you bring money in? How did you cut costs? And how did you support efficiency? Boom, boom,
exactly,
boom, boom.
boom. And the thing is that it doesn't need to be all three because, like, for example, support roles like HR, I
Mm-hmm.
cannot quantify how much money I brought in for the company, right? But I can definitely pull numbers on how much money cut for the company, how much have I improved efficiency for the company, and
Mm-hmm.
also a little T. No one checks the numbers that you put on your resume. Just don't make it ridiculous, okay? Like if you're working at a company that has 50 people, don't say that you increased efficiency for 150 employees, okay? Don't do that. Um,
Right.
but
You want to be as truthful or close to the truth as possible.
Right. And if you don't have a way to pull that data, then think about it. Like think about it like a pizza pie. Like do the old school elementary stuff in your head and
Mm-hmm.
like you're back in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and then quantify it to the best of your capability on paper. You do not need to pull it from the company exact 36.45%. You
Right.
don't need to do that. Yeah. No one's fact checking that. Just don't make it so wildly a lie that, God forbid, let's say it makes it to the media, that it would be a lie. You want it to be as
Right.
truthful as possible.
Right. AKA one of the people in Congress right now, exactly, who
That part.
falsified his resume. You don't want that happening, right? So, because we're like Michelle Obama over here, we always go high as much as we can anyway, you guys. And so,
Right.
you know what? It was a point that you and I discussed the last time, and it just slipped my mind because I thought it would be important for this. Oh, it's always important to try to move jobs every couple years, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because that's how we get that. Here's the thing, and just like how we talked about, how you reverse engineered the whole situation with HR earlier, you got to reverse engineer this whole situation. So you don't want to get to a point where you get so comfortable in your job, and I know it's easier said than done. And just like like Lorena said, go ahead, take less money, more peace, if that's what it takes. But move around every couple of years so that you are not so stuck in this cushy job, and you're like, and then you get paralyzed, like, oh my God, I can't go anywhere. And like Shai said, now they beat you down, and now you're like, nobody else is going to want me. And what you said was exactly how I felt. I was just like, where else am I going to go? Because I started thinking like, I got all these years in, I got all, I'm thinking about my age, right? So I'm looking like, where am I going to go? Who's going to want me? I'm older now. And one of my clients last week, she told me, her concern is, because I asked her, I said, well, have you thought about maybe going to another job? And she said she had been in this particular industry for over 20 years, and she and I were about the same age. And so she was just like, but where am I going to go? But like you said, we have to build our confidence back up, right? We can't
Yep.
be someplace that's going to beat us down to the point where our confidence is gone. And
Right.
that's why I share with people something I did personally. And I actually learned this from Louise Hay. And that is looking at yourself in the mirror every day and telling yourself, I love you, until you freaking mean it. Looking at yourself and saying, I love you, and point out something every day that you love about yourself. You start making it a part of your daily practice, and then you will never lose yourself. And then back to what you had said earlier at the top of this conversation, start seeing a mental health specialist early on,
Yep.
because that they will help you get, they will actually point out if you're going to work and you're being abused, and you sit down with your therapist and you start sharing this with them, they're going to be like, okay, we need to get you out of there.
Yep.
They're going to say that.
They are, and that's the whole thing. Like, if you are starting to feel you got that low self esteem with your company, or maybe it's your childhood, or whatever the case may be, therapists, life coach, business coach, all these people, they're there, especially if they're effective, to find the blind spots that you don't see. They're looking behind your head. And usually they're going to say, we need to get you out of there. And you're going to be like, why? They're going to be like, because they're abusing you. And because you have
Exactly.
no confidence in yourself, you have no love for yourself, you don't even know that you're being abused, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not
Mm-hmm.
taking what, like a belt to you? Like, come on. Like, that they're there to see what you don't
Yep.
and to help you process. And so, yeah, to your point, with that said, I know Loriana, I think, or less money and more peace. Yes?
Yeah.
But you don't need to do that. That should be an emergency situation, right? And always, always, always when you're looking for a new role, it's you should have one of two, if not both. One of two is you should be earning or you should be learning, right?
Hello.
And the best way is to have both. The worst way is to have none. You need to
Absolutely.
go.
Absolutely. And the other thing too, I think people don't realize this is because I was helping my oldest son, I was helping him trying to find a job the other day, another job because he's switching jobs. And, you know, you research these companies and look and see what the employees are saying about them. And I said on my videos, I got a couple videos out there that list the different job sites, but do yourself a favor, Google job review sites. See what the employees are saying about these companies. I done seen in the last couple of days, I have seen 2 stars. I have seen people say, do not work here. Horrible work environment, horrible work culture. Managers are not supportive. I mean, look for those things because you don't want to hop from the frying pan to the fire. So, because I know a young lady had reached out to me and she was just like, well, what are we supposed to be doing? Are we supposed to leave every 3 months? No. That's why you do your research first so that you're not going someplace and then to find out it's toxic for you to have to move again.
Yep. And also, what you said from your comment right there is the sign to me, at least if I was coaching them, that they were being very reactive.
Yes.
And
We
the
don't
thing
want to
is
be
that
hyper reactive.
right, you need to very clearly understand your goal for that role. And when you are understanding your goal for that role, nothing will bother you. And what I mean by that, not to say that there's not going to be things that's going to piss you off every once in a while, things like that.
Of course.
What I mean by that is if your goal is, I have children to feed, I need money, then do that, right? And then you mind your business if you see something happening and you're like, okay, do you want to get involved? Yeah, but it might conflict with your goal, right?
Yep.
Um, maybe you can get involved in a different way, right? Or maybe you're like, this is a super toxic environment. However, I need money. Here's my game plan. I'm going to work backwards from 6 months. I want to be out of here by 6 months, right? And so again, that sort of very thoughtful way
Very
of looking
logical.
at your career. You need to look at your career like that is your baby. That's your soul because it's your
Mhm.
responsibility to you.
And if you can look at it this way, if you're about to go on vacation, right? And you're like, okay, I need to drop 10 pounds before I go on vacation. It's that goal. So I know I need to do this, 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 and this to get to that goal. So same thing like you said, if you're saying something and it's going down, you need to write it down so that you can remember, whatever today's date is, at such and such a time, I am giving them 3 months or I am giving them 6 months. I'm giving myself 6 months. And
Right.
if I don't see anything changing, I'm about to make a change. I'm going to go ahead and take control of my life and make a change before they start changing me. So, because either you're going to change, or if you stay in that toxic work environment, trust me, they are going to change you.
Yep.
So you don't want to be there. So I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add, my dear, because we coming up on an hour, and if you guys had any other questions after Shy, if she wanted to share anything.
I think one of my last tips is performance reviews. Use that this damn word strategically. And what I mean by that is that there is a part of that that is a self review, and you can use it the same way. You could, let's say you keep it politically correct for your company, in that you're aligning your goals to their goals, but
Mm-hmm.
always make sure you're reevaluating yourself. What do you want? What do you want? It could be the littlest thing, it could be the biggest thing, right? Let's say you're aiming for CEO one day. What are you doing in that performance review when you look back on that 6 months? Have you done anything to move the needle to be that
Ooh.
CEO, right?
Ooh,
And
right.
it don't matter about your manager. It don't matter that you're a customer service representative. What have you done, right? Maybe you want to be an influencer. So you need to get good at succinct public speaking that's engaging, right?
Yep.
What have you done? Put that in that performance review, but align it with what your manager wants, right? But you
Right.
always keep in stock in your mind what your goal is for you, right? And that by documenting that, you're keeping yourself accountable. You're also accountable for your failures sometimes, right? Maybe you didn't put enough work. Maybe you got distracted by something that happened in your life. But those performance reviews are so good for you. And I think oftentimes people think, oh, it's just a company thing. It's based on likability. It's based on bureaucracy and politics. Yeah, a lot of the times it is.
Yep.
But you should look at it as a power tool for yourself as you continue to work on your career and your own path. And you can do that for yourself at home and keep it, like you said, in a notebook
Yep.
where you're evaluating what have you done. If you freaking hate that job, like I said, if you don't care? You trying to get fired anyway? Work on something that you want. Work on
Right.
something that you want to do. How can I handle conflict better?
Exactly.
That's a big one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, Danae. Thank you.
Hello.
Look, she's talking to both of us. So again, you guys, I'm going to ask you if you have any questions before we sign off, but we hope that I hope this little powwow we had was beneficial. Um, we want to start doing this quarterly where we kind of meet with you guys and you have your questions, and that way we can kind of talk about it. And, like I said, she is a HR professional. And so she gives us, this, I don't want to use that word, girl. Now you go. Every time I hear her use the word strategy,
We're gonna have to
she,
bring wine and we take a drink every single time. Every single time
right.
you use that
You
word.
know, do the shot game, and it's just like you just want to make sure that we can lean on her to give us insight from an HR perspective, and then of course my experience from the 10 years of workplace bullying abuse that none of y'all about to do, because that's what this channel is here for, and so I will be posting this on my YouTube channel so that people can watch it. So I am at Boss Up Culture TV on YouTube, or just go to www.bossupculture.org, and then you can find all of my handles there. Make sure you guys pick up my workbook. I actually show you how to document. Because I know a lot of people ask me, how do you document? I show you step by step how to document. I show you the reasons. I tell you the reasons why you are a target. What kind of lawyers you should be getting for your situation, because sometimes y'all might have to get a lawyer that's going to handle assaults, because some of people are getting assaulted on their jobs. So and a lot of people aren't making police reports like they should. So I'll walk you through all of that. I try to pack everything in. I made it so that it's not boring. So check it out. It's on my site. And so just continue to tune in, and I'm going to continue to bring you as much content that can help you as possible. Donate to bossupculture.org, because there's a lot of people that cannot afford mental health care. So if people have not met their deductibles, they're going to need help, or people who just don't have mental health care. And we just talked about how important mental health is. So Chey, make sure you let them know how to reach you, where to find you again.
Again, TikTok at the People Press. So ThePeoplePress. Again, I know I haven't posted in a little bit, but again, I'm working on operations in the background so I can better support you all.
Cool. So we appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Again, I'm going to post this on my YouTube channel, so make sure you check it out and continue to follow me and Chey. And then we will be back in touch with you guys in the next couple months. Or if y'all want us to come back sooner, let me know. Let us both know in our comment section, and then she and I will hook it up. If we got to do it like once every other Friday night, or if y'all want to do it on a Monday, let us know what works for you, and we will work it on out. Okay. So thank you guys so much, and we love you. And whenever you need us, we're right. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us bossofculture.org, all the things. And have a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.